Restaurants would shut down if they didn't have a big television set. Nobody would go out to dinner. And then people were having parties, Dallas parties and stuff.
Larry Hagman became famous for playing J.R. Ewing, one of television's most memorable villains. But the real drama happened behind the scenes, where Hagman fought battles that nearly destroyed the show that made him a star. His story is about how one actor changed Hollywood forever by refusing to back down. Before Hagman became the evil oil baron J.R. Ewing, he was known for something completely different. He played Tony Nelson, a bumbling astronaut in the comedy show I Dream of Jeannie. For almost 5 years, viewers saw him as a clean-cut, wholesome, and somewhat silly character who was the love interest of Barbara Eden's magical genie. Nobody watching that lighthearted show could have imagined that this same actor would later become one of the coldest and most ruthless characters on television. When Hagman first tried out for the role of J.R. in Dallas, the producers weren't even sure he was right for the part. They had imagined J.R. Ewing as smooth and charming, but not necessarily larger than life. Hagman was about to change everything they thought they knew about the character. The truth is that Hagman didn't just play J.R., he completely reinvented him. The early scripts showed J.R. as just another Texas businessman with some shady dealings. But when Hagman stepped onto the set, he brought something special to the role. He gave the character a devilish smile, sharp wit, and an almost joyful cruelty that made him impossible to ignore. Viewers didn't just dislike J.R., they couldn't take their eyes off him. Hagman's performance turned what could have been a simple villain into the heart and soul of Dallas. Suddenly, the show wasn't just a family drama anymore. It became a battle between good and evil, with J.R. pulling all the strings. Behind the camera, Hagman understood the power he was creating. He knew that every smirk, every sarcastic comment, and every scheming look was drawing people deeper into the story. The network executives noticed too. Ratings jumped whenever J.R. was at the center of an episode. Even though Dallas had a strong cast of actors, it became clear very quickly that Larry Hagman wasn't just another actor on the show. He was the show itself. This transformation shocked not only audiences, but also the executives at CBS, who realized they had accidentally created a television phenomenon. But with fame came power, and with power came problems. Hagman wasn't satisfied with just being a star. He was ready to rewrite the rules about how stars should be treated. When Dallas premiered in 1978, nobody expected it to become a cultural earthquake. The show was marketed as a simple evening soap opera about a wealthy Texas oil family. But within just a couple of years, it grew into a worldwide obsession. At the center of it all was Larry Hagman's portrayal of J.R. Ewing, the charming villain that people loved to hate. Every time J.R. plotted a business takeover, betrayed his own family, or outsmarted his enemies, audiences couldn't look away. He wasn't just another TV bad guy. He was the ultimate bad guy. By the early 1980s, Dallas wasn't just successful in the United States. It became a global sensation, broadcast in nearly 90 countries where audiences tuned in to see what J.R. would do next. At its peak, the show pulled in an estimated 90 million viewers for the legendary Who Shot J.R. cliffhanger. That single storyline became the most talked-about mystery in television history. Newspapers printed theories about who the shooter might be. Talk shows debated the suspects. People placed bets in Las Vegas casinos. J.R. Ewing wasn't just a character anymore. He had become part of popular culture. But behind all the glitz and glamour of the show's success, something more dangerous was happening. As the ratings climbed higher, Larry Hagman realized just how much power he had. Without J.R., there was no Dallas. Viewers weren't tuning in for the other Ewing family members. They wanted to see the ruthless oil baron they loved to despise, and Hagman knew it. He started to test his boundaries with the network, pushing back on long working hours, rewriting his lines, and demanding more creative freedom. What began as small acts of defiance soon escalated into something much bigger. The cast and crew whispered about how Hagman's ego was growing along with his fame. But it wasn't just about ego, it was about leverage. Hagman had stumbled onto a rare position in television. He was essentially untouchable. CBS executives were faced with a terrifying question. What if the man who made the show a global hit suddenly decided to walk away? And that's exactly what he was about to threaten to do. By 1980, Dallas was at its peak, and Larry Hagman was the undisputed star. But while the show looked unstoppable on screen, the truth behind the scenes was far messier. Hagman's contract was set to expire, and CBS assumed it would be a routine renewal. After all, who in their right mind would walk away from the biggest show in the world? But Hagman wasn't just anyone. He had studied J.R. Ewing so closely that he had started to think like him. And just like J.R. Hagman was about to play a dangerous game of high-stakes poker with the network executives. Instead of quietly signing his contract renewal, Hagman shocked executives with an outrageous demand. He wanted a salary increase that would make him one of the highest-paid actors in television history. At the time, most TV stars earned respectable but not outrageous paychecks. Hagman, however, wanted millions, not just per season, but $100,000 per episode, an unheard-of number in 1980. And he wasn't bluffing. He told the network point blank, "If I don't get what I want, I'm gone." At first, CBS thought he was joking. They figured the man who had played the gentle Tony Nelson and now J.R. Ewing wouldn't risk throwing it all away. But Hagman doubled down on his threat. He stopped showing up to rehearsals. He hinted to the press that he was ready to walk away, and behind closed doors, he told executives that Dallas was nothing without him, and they knew he was right. The executives, furious at what they saw as arrogance, began discussing drastic options. Rumors swirled that producers were preparing to kill off J.R. entirely and shift the spotlight onto another character. Some even claimed they considered recasting the role, though fans today agree that would have been television suicide. Still, CBS believed they could call Hagman's bluff. The thinking was simple. No actor was bigger than the show. But in this case, they were wrong. Hagman had timed his rebellion with almost sinister precision. The network had already filmed the shocking "Who Shot J.R." cliffhanger, a storyline that left the world on edge. Without J.R., the cliffhanger was meaningless. If Hagman walked away now, the biggest TV moment of all time would collapse overnight. He had CBS cornered, and he knew it. The standoff turned into a battle of nerves, with neither side willing to give in first. But what came next would push the network to the edge and change television contracts forever. The summer of 1980 became one of the most suspenseful moments in television history, not just for fans, but for CBS executives fighting for survival. On screen, the world was fixated on who had pulled the trigger on J.R. Ewing. Off-screen, the real mystery was whether Larry Hagman would ever return to play him again. The timing couldn't have been more explosive. Hagman's contract negotiations were happening at the exact same time the "Who Shot J.R.'s" cliffhanger was dominating headlines around the world. The cliffhanger had been a stroke of genius. At the end of the season, J.R. was shot by an unknown assassin, leaving audiences in shock. Fans debated endlessly. Was it Sue Ellen, his bitter wife? Was it Kristen, his scheming mistress, or one of the dozens of people J.R. had double-crossed over the years? The question became so big that it made the cover of magazines, inspired comedy sketches, and even entered political speeches. Everyone wanted to know who shot J.R., but inside CBS headquarters, the bigger question was, who controls J.R.? Without Hagman, the network was trapped. They had filmed months of television that now depended on his return. If he walked away, the entire storyline that had turned Dallas into a global phenomenon would collapse. For months, CBS considered killing off J.R. permanently. Rumors spread through the industry that producers were drafting scripts to explain his death. Some insiders even whispered about the unthinkable, recasting the role with another actor. Hagman, meanwhile, stayed eerily calm. Like his on-screen alter ego, he knew he had the upper hand. He refused to give in, instead letting the pressure build until CBS had no choice but to bend to his demands. The longer he stayed silent, the more desperate the network became. With every passing week, millions of fans demanded answers, and those answers could only come if Hagman stepped back into J.R.'s shoes. In the end, CBS executives realized they had been outplayed. Hagman had turned a fictional cliffhanger into a real-life standoff that captured as much attention as the show itself. They quietly reached a groundbreaking agreement with him, ensuring J.R. would survive the gunshot. What viewers didn't know as they eagerly waited for the reveal that fall was that the true battle the one that nearly killed Dallas, had already taken place behind closed doors. But as Hagman celebrated his victory, another war was brewing, because while money and power kept him on the throne, his personal demons were threatening to tear everything apart. Larry Hagman may have won the contract battle, but victory came with a dangerous shadow. Off-screen, his lifestyle was spiraling into something reckless and self-destructive. Known among cast and crew as the life of the party, Hagman wasn't just a casual drinker. He was consuming alcohol at a level that shocked even Hollywood veterans. Stories circulated that he would start his mornings with champagne, switch to vodka by lunch, and keep drinking late into the night. Some insiders claimed he was putting away 4 bottles a day while still showing up to play J.R. with his trademark sharpness. At first, it was brushed off as eccentric behavior. Hagman was funny, charming, and seemed almost untouchable. But the truth was darker. His heavy drinking wasn't just a quirk, it was becoming a serious problem. On set, fellow actors whispered about moments where he slurred his lines or stumbled through rehearsals. Directors worried his health could collapse at any moment. For CBS, this wasn't just about a star with a drinking problem. This was about the backbone of a billion-dollar franchise showing cracks that could bring everything crashing down. Yet Hagman seemed to thrive in chaos. He used his unpredictability as leverage, almost daring the network to fire him. His bad habits became another weapon in negotiations. The message was clear. If they wanted JR, they had to take Larry Hagman as he was, flaws and all. And strangely enough, it worked. Producers tolerated his behavior, terrified of losing the man who had made Dallas a global empire. But behind the bravado, Hagman was paying a heavy price. Years of constant drinking began destroying his health. Friends described him as having a permanent red flush, with hands that trembled when he wasn't holding a glass. Though he laughed it off publicly, privately, doctors warned him that his liver was in serious danger. Hagman ignored the warnings, convinced he could outdrink and outlast anyone. This recklessness nearly destroyed him. His drink. Ewing would later lead to cirrhosis and eventually require a liver transplant. But in the early 1980s, none of that mattered to him. He felt untouchable. The combination of wild success, huge paychecks, and destructive habits pushed Hagman into a world where he believed he was invincible. But while his vices fueled his legend, they also pushed CBS into an impossible corner. By the fall of 1980, CBS executives had no choice. They were cornered by the very actor they once thought they could control. Larry Hagman had pulled off a masterstroke worthy of J.R. Ewing himself. After months of tense negotiations, Hagman emerged with a contract that stunned Hollywood. He got his $100,000 per episode, plus additional perks and creative freedoms that most actors could only dream about. It instantly made him one of the highest-paid stars on television, and more importantly, it set a precedent that would affect the industry for decades to come. Up until then, networks held all the power. Actors were replaceable, shows moved on, and salaries were tightly controlled. Hagman shattered that model overnight. He proved that a single star could hold an entire show hostage and win. Suddenly, other actors saw the blueprint. If you were essential to your show, you didn't have to accept the network's first offer. You could fight back, delay production, and force their hand. Hagman had turned the traditional power dynamic upside down. The impact was immediate. Reporters called his deal Hollywood's most expensive gamble. Industry insiders whispered that Hagman had opened Pandora's box, giving actors a weapon they'd never had before: real leverage. Future stars, from sitcom icons to dramatic leads, would use the Hagman playbook to demand bigger paychecks. In many ways, the multi-million-dollar contracts we see today trace back to this one standoff in 1980. But even as Hagman enjoyed the rewards of his victory, there was an undercurrent of unease. Executives feared they had created a monster. Cast members quietly resented the gap between his pace, heck, and theirs. And Hagman himself, already spiraling into destructive habits, now had the money and freedom to indulge every excess without consequences. The deal gave him everything he wanted, but it also removed the guardrails that might have kept him in check. Still, for the moment, Hagman was untouchable. The champagne flowed, the headlines praised him, and J.R. Ewing returned to television screens more powerful than ever. The cliffhanger paid off, the ratings soared, and audiences never knew just how close their favorite character had come to being erased forever. But Hagman's victory came with a hidden cost. While his contract cemented his place in history, his body was beginning to show the price of years of excess. By the mid-1980s, the damage could no longer be ignored. Hagman was diagnosed with cirrhosis, a brutal reminder that his years of excessive drinking had caught up with him. Even then, he didn't fully slow down. Friends recalled him laughing about doctors' warnings, joking that he was pickled and could never die. But the truth was darker. His body was breaking down, and his survival would eventually depend on a liver transplant. Despite the chaos in his personal life, Hagman never missed a season of Dallas. His presence was too valuable, and CBS couldn't risk letting him go. That loyalty, however, wasn't just about admiration, it was about desperation. Without J.R., the show would collapse. So the network enabled Hagman's dangerous habits, turning a blind eye when they should have stepped in. In a way, the machine that Hagman had manipulated so brilliantly was now complicit in his downfall. But even as his health failed, Hagman's star power never dimmed. Fans continued to worship him, unaware of how fragile he truly was. To them, he was still the ruthless oil baron, untouchable and eternal. The irony was brutal. The man who had outplayed Hollywood, odd executives, was losing a much more personal war with himself. Larry Hagman's story is one of television's greatest paradoxes. On one hand, he was the villain everyone loved to hate, a man who turned J.R. Ewing into a cultural icon and forever changed the way TV dramas were written. On the other, he was a star whose personal demons nearly destroyed him. But out of that chaos came a legacy that still shapes Hollywood today. The contract standoff that nearly got him fired is remembered as a turning point in television history. Before Hagman, actors were replaceable, salaries were modest, and networks held all the cards. After Hagman, stars realized they could demand and receive unprecedented paychecks if they were truly indispensable. Every blockbuster deal that followed, from sitcom megastars in the 1990s to the ensemble casts of today's streaming shows, owes a debt to the blueprint Hagman created. But Hagman's legacy isn't just financial. He redefined what it meant to be a TV villain. J.R. wasn't a simple cartoon bad guy. He was layered, charming, and terrifyingly real. Viewers hated him, but they couldn't stop watching him. That kind of magnetic, morally complex character became the model for future television anti-heroes, paving the way for characters like Tony Soprano, Walter White, and Don Draper. Without Hagman's J.R., television storytelling might never have evolved into what we know today. Off-screen, his life remained full of contradictions. He was a devoted husband, married to his wife Maji for nearly 50 years, yet publicly wild and reckless in his habits. He fought his demons with humor, often making light of his drinking even as it nearly killed him. When he finally received a life-saving liver transplant in the mid-1990s, he used his second chance to advocate for organ donation, turning his personal struggle into something that helped countless others. When Hagman passed away in 2012, tributes poured in from around the world. Fans remembered the ruthless grin, the cowboy hat, the unforgettable laugh. But those who worked with him remembered something else. The man who stared down the most powerful network in television, risked it all, and walked away with the kind of victory J.R. himself would have admired. Larry Hagman wasn't just an actor. He was a game changer, a rule breaker, and a survivor. His secret standoff with Dallas proves that sometimes the most shocking battles aren't the ones we see on screen. They're the ones fought in private, where the stakes are higher than anyone dares to admit.